I had to take the first 8 minutes off of the YouTube because the button didn't push again. I think I'm having a problem with that. But we're ready now, and we're live. So, in 3, 2, 1. I'm still having a problem here. Hold on. I'm not going to shut this off, but I'm having a problem with the iPad for some strange reason. It's not connecting in. And it was working before. Hold on. I'm just going to do a couple things. Yeah, I'm not hearing this at all. There we go. All right. That's nice. All right. One more time. This will all be cut out. In 3, 2, 1.
Hello? Are you ready? Yes. Then we'll begin.
Right about now, I wish I had a broom tree to sit under, but I don't. So I'm here with you anyway, and I've got our friends back. So this is Monday Morning Catholic, episode number 83.
6:30 Monday morning. I'm here hiding in my bed. A song plays on my alarm clock as I cover up my head. Somewhere in the distance, I remember yesterday singing hallelujah, full of wonder, awe, and praise.
All I remember about yesterday is I need a broom tree, and I really want to know what a broom tree is. So I have got to go look it up. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Monday Morning Catholic Podcast. I'm your host and moderator, Joanne Mercier. And if you're watching, looky, we've got at least 2 of the 3 back. I'm so happy. And we have missed them. They've been away for a couple of weeks and running around hither and yon. And we have with us, although Linda is still out, we have Nancy Smith from St. Teresa's and St. Christopher's in Tiverton, Rhode Island. Good morning, Nancy. How you doing?
Good morning, Joanne. I'm doing well. Good morning, Stephen. Morning, everyone.
Yes, and on the other square, we have Steve Romano from St. Augustine's Parish in Providence, Rhode Island. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Howdy, I'm good. Good morning. Nice to be back. I think I've been the one that's been out the longest.
I don't know about that, but I think the 2 of you have been a toss-up.
At first I thought I was replaced, but now I feel better now.
Oh,
so.
Stop.
Okay.
No one can replace you.
I was waiting every day for the pink slip to show up in my mailbox. You know?
No one can replace you, Steve.
I'm only kidding. No
one can replace you. So, but we do, Jason was here last week, who's a good friend of yours and ours, and Allison Gingras was here last week. So, when you guys aren't here, I have to go schlepping to find people who will come and talk with me. I become the great talking head, which I don't like. So, and both of you know I could go on for an hour, but I won't.
It's funny that the weekend that we were in Canada, I think I probably could have logged in and done the segment with you because we were waiting for the bus.
Oh.
The dreaded bus from Logan,
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and I bet it was like waiting and waiting.
You know what, Joanne? I said to Beth, flying out of Logan is fine. It's really not a problem. But it's the fact that when you get to Logan, you're not really home.
No, you're not.
And you're at and if you don't drive, you're at the mercy of the bus schedule.
Yep. Right.
So we had almost a 2-hour wait after our flight. So it actually the flight from Canada was an hour and a half.
Right.
And then our trip from Boston to Providence, I think, was 3 hours.
Now let me ask a question. Had you because those of you who don't know the geography around here know that we have also like a shuttle service that comes out of Braintree. If you had driven to Braintree, okay, and taken the shuttle from there, would it have been faster?
I don't think so, because especially on a Sunday night, the time schedule seemed to be very bare minimum as far as the loops.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
one bus was too early, and the next bus was the one that we had to wait for, so it was like 2 hours.
So the plane ride was the least of your worries.
Right. I think if we would have parachuted out, we probably would have got home faster. So.
Oh, keep that in mind next time, you know.
But I also think that, you know, driving to Boston isn't bad if you don't go in rush hour traffic.
Right, it's not.
So.
It actually isn't bad at all.
I've done the shuttle to Braintree with Braintree. You and I did it once, Stephen.
Yep.
Um,
Because
and
we flew out 5 o'clock. 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, and we didn't hit much traffic with the bus. And then we arrived home on a Sunday night, and we didn't hit any traffic. So we probably could have just left our car there, you know. So
Well,
lesson learned.
see, this is why I drive. This is why I take a train.
And Joanne, you should have seen the plane we were on. You would have died if you saw it.
Yeah. Well, I've been on those little tiny jets with the
propellers.
Yes, I've been on those jets.
you
I'll
don't
tell
even
you
know
this.
what those things are.
I will tell you this: when I stood on the stairs, I could look over the plane, like over the other side.
Hey.
Worse than the one you and I took to Rochester,
Yes,
was
Nancy,
it? Was it
was
really?
worse. It was
Oh,
worse.
folks, he couldn't even stand up straight. We couldn't stop laughing. The man couldn't stand up straight. It was that tiny.
But bottom line is I'm happy to be back. So hello, everybody.
Well, good. We're glad to have you back, and you've had quite a few things happen with installing your pastor last weekend.
Yeah, and he was very touched. He was thrilled. He was happy.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So.
Good.
Good.
Glad for that. And Nancy was out doing all sorts of parishy things as well. How was the feast?
The feast was great. We had a parish feast Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and it went well. And the weather cooperated. As a matter of fact, it was very warm. And
And to make it even warmer.
yeah, and but it went very, very well. So that was good.
Good. Good. It's the only parish feast for St. Teresa that happens in August rather than October, because in October nobody wants to go under a tent and sit there outside. So
Yeah, well, it's, last year we sat there with our coats and our sweatshirts and our gloves because it was so cold and rainy and such. So this year was quite a pleasant turn of weather. So.
now that's good. I'm glad everything went well for that as well. But I'm also glad to have you guys back. Now, if we
Good to
can
be back.
If we can get Linda back, because this is Linda's second week out in a row, and she's very rarely ever out, which I think is, she needs the time away. So this is kind of cool.
She's in Colorado.
Yeah, she's having fun. Wish I was there.
I subbed for a funeral this week at her church, and
How about telling tales? Here we go.
It's funny because as we all know, Linda's a guitar player, and
Now, not everybody knows that.
right.
So,
Oh, okay. Well, and there is an organ in that church, but I think I'm the only one that plays it. So I was up in the choir loft, and people are turning around looking like, "Oh, what's going on up there?"
now, the state of that organ, I hear, is
It's
questionable.
let me just say, I'm not going to say anything. I'll be good.
Okay.
So,
All right.
sometimes
It
stops
works.
work, and sometimes they don't.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're not using it, and then we need to explain this.
Yeah.
Linda has been at this particular parish for 30 years, and she has led the entire thing with guitars, bells, an occasional, if you use the piano like I do, it's up front.
Mm.
Okay? And it's hard for me because there's no privacy panel, so it means I have to wear slacks every time because it's just either that or a long skirt. So in the summer, that's not the greatest thing in the world. But there is an organ there, which I think is sat for 30 years. Am I correct?
Oh, it's actually, Joanne, it's the same one that it's the same model that you would have played at Mary of the Bay back in the day.
Okay, I know exactly what that is now. So, yep, that's an Allen. It's an
Rogers.
Allen.
Rogers.
Rogers.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's that era,
Right.
70s era Rogers.
The 1970s analog.
There
Right.
you. There you.
So, you know, Father John called me and he said, "Can you help us out?" And I said, "Well, if the organ won't start, I'll come down and play the piano in the front." So,
Which has a few questionable organ sounds, but
well, right, and actually the family requested a singer, so I just said, you know what, let me just play the organ, and she sang from upstairs with me, and it was fine.
oh, there you
It
go.
was fine. So.
There you go. Because I was subbing for Linda this weekend at the Saturday Mass
Mm-hmm.
with a cantor. So I'll tell you, the first two pieces. Well, we did the opening, and people were craning their necks because they were like, "There's a piano."
Yeah.
You know, like they probably never.
Well, then, Joanna, if you should have seen them when they heard the organ.
Organ. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I did we used the Lee Gloria,
Mm-hmm.
and she uses with two tone bells, and I did that while the cantor did her thing, and then it didn't until we got to the Alleluia, they weren't sure, so they weren't quite singing. They were kind of like hesitating. By the time we got to the Alleluia, they were fine because they were like, okay, this is the way it's going to be. There is no guitar today. Yeah, there is no guitar today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't played guitar in years, and I'm not about to pick it up today. So that sort of took care of that. But it's fun it's fun when Linda's away because the assembly keeps singing. It's a beautiful thing. They just keep singing on the weekend. They're just as loud as when she's there. So it was really nice to not feel like, you know, I'm sure at least she will get people who will say to her, "Gee, we're so glad you're back because we had all these other people and we didn't know what to do." So it's always good.
It was also nice on that same mentality. I noted that there was a post on Facebook this week that it's so wonderful. They were happy that the parish that Stephen left, the new music minister started, and it's so great that the assembly is singing. Well, that's because as Linda's parish, Stephen's parish had an excellent music minister that brought that along.
It took all of what I could do, Nancy, not to write "You're welcome"
Honey,
underneath that post.
You should have.
Stephen, I sat there posed over my keyboard.
And you
I'm going-
know what's not to take up all this time, but
Yeah, because really, we go ahead, finish your
but
thought.
no, I saw that, Nancy, and you know what, and I thought I was going to type that, but then I thought no, I didn't want to do that. But it's interesting because I'm at a new situation now, where actually Joanne came and visited last Sunday. I was looking for you today, but I didn't see you. So
because I was subbing in Middleborough today.
But
It's a whole other story.
and, I mean, I've mentioned before how they're not it's not a singing parish, but one of the strangest things, people are commenting to me, and this is, and I'm not trying to talk out of school or anything, but for many, many years, they didn't know they were supposed to sing.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Even this morning after Mass, somebody said, "Oh, welcome to the parish," and I said, "Thank you," and she said, now, again, you have to be very patient with us because we didn't know we were supposed to sing." And I said, I don't know what to say anymore. I just smile. So.
Well, you are, so start.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to the congregation yet. That's coming, I think. But I think maybe if I go down and say, like, maybe take a chance and open your book, and maybe the next person will do it next to you, and then the next person, and the next person. It's been an eye-opening experience to me because of what Nancy just said. I loved OLMC, and they do sing.
Yeah, and I will tell you though, Stephen, I was a little bit more concerned before I was at Mass last week, as to what the volume of their participation was, and I guess I was more pleasantly surprised that the more books I saw open,
It's Father Forcier keeps telling me, because he sees that I get kind of down in the dumps about it, and he keeps telling me, he's like, you have to understand, Steve, it's going to take a long time.
Oh, Steve, it's years. It's years. But it's worth it.
Yeah, this is not something that's going to get rectified overnight. You know,
Right.
you can keep.
Always look on the bright side of life.
You got to, because they do sing. Okay. I was more concerned with some of the responses were a little under breath.
They are. I agree, and
that
I
concerned me more.
as not being the pastor. I mean, I'm the music director, so I don't. That's not my say, if you will.
Right.
But I agree. Even this weekend, I noticed that could be the volume could come up a bit.
Right.
But
And
again,
it will. You've
again,
been there 6 weeks? Yeah.
6 weeks is nothing.
Yeah. No.
If they've been doing this for, 26, 30 years, then 6 weeks.
Actually, somebody told me it's actually been more like 40, 45 years.
I heard 5, but I wasn't sure. That's why I was waiting to see if you'd say that. I heard.
So
And you know what?
I guess I should be happy that they're at least opening the book.
Yes.
And I remember when I first started it at my previous parish back in mid-'80s, going to NPM, and every workshop I went to beginnings because that's where I was. And everybody said, don't plan on any less than 5 years to get your congregation singing.
Correct.
So mine at that parish took 6-7 years, but I left a vibrant singing parish like you did.
And one of the last things I'll say is Joanne gave me a good pointer, and it's one of the comments you made, Joanne, about don't go in and think you're going to be their savior.
That's right.
You know?
You ain't it, honey.
No, exactly. And I was telling my wife, I might be like the stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the next person will probably reap the benefits. You know what I mean?
That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get a chance to reap what you sow.
Right.
That should be I think I'm going to put that on my tombstone.
Okay.
I hope somebody else sowed the good stuff that I was able to,
So then one idea I had was to do like a choir flash mob and invite as many people as I could to come to Mass and like sit in clusters downstairs.
Oh my goodness.
And just like sing your brains out.
I'll do that. Let us know.
Interesting. That would be really interesting.
Well, because I was talking with a 30-something-year-old guy, and he brought up a good point, and he said to me, welcome to the parish. He's actually he might be 40-something, but he's the principal of the school, new principal. Okay. And he said to me, he said, he goes with his kids to Mass, and he said, I would be more apt to sing if more people around me were singing.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where, you feel like you're self-conscious about doing it.
So when will this flash mob be?
I have no idea. I just thought to myself, well, geez, maybe I could do something like that, So
I like that.
Yeah. Actually, I'd love to do a flash mob at Christmas time.
Yeah.
You don't have
Someplace.
to do a flash mob at Christmas time because Christmas time they all sing the hymn.
No. Let me complete my thought. At a mall or something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I like this idea.
You can run with it. Okay, let's get on the road.
That's what happened. I'll start running with that kind of thing, and we'll just keep going. But if we don't, we've already gone into so many different things, and we've put half the people asleep who aren't here for musician talk.
Yeah.
We'll have to have musician coffee talk at some.
You mean there's people out there that don't live, eat, sleep, and breathe liturgical music?
That would be correct.
Shocking.
I know.
Sorry, folks.
I know.
Knows that I love music.
Yeah. Steve does not know this song.
I do.
You got to be of a certain age to know that song. Anyway, so let us get into what we normally get into. We have no feedback. Boo-hoo. And that's all I'm going to say because every week I sit here and complain, and I promised myself I wouldn't do that this week. So I try, but I'm not going to. So let us go on to what you all come here for, because, you know, every week we take a look back at the weekend's liturgies and try to make some sense of everything that we see, hear, smell, whatever. We do talk about other things. We also have a running experiment called Voice of the People, where we will, again, talk about what the Voice of the People have decided they liked on our Facebook page this week. And if you are new to us at Monday Morning Catholic, welcome. We have had a really nice bump from our friends, the Catholics Next Door, as well as A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras. So we've had a little bit of a bump the last couple of weeks. We thank you. We don't want to scare you away with all the music stuff, if that's not your thing, but it is ours. So please, just forgive us. And let us go on to what we should be talking about.
Do you hear what I hear?
Do you hear what I hear? For the 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we are still talking bread, people. And we've got 2 more weeks of bread. Is that what it is?
Yes, 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks of bread, so please get used to it. And it's funny because in hearing, I got to hear 3 homilies this weekend. So the girl who usually has none has 3. And there were some similar themes, and then there were some variations on themes. So it'll be very interesting to hear what you folks have as well as what I picked up. So we're going to take a look at the readings first as to what we did here. And our first reading this past weekend, came from the first book of Kings, chapter 19, Elijah the Whiner and the Broom Tree. Yes, my boss, God love Father John Sheridan of the Cranberry Collaborative, Cranberry Catholic Collaborative, he got up there and said, Elijah was such a whiner. All he ever does in that entire book is whine. So, I mean, and he's very big and broad when he speaks. So it was just kind of made me laugh because I was like, yeah, he does. Doesn't he? And it's the whole big thing about he wants to die under the broom tree because he's just sick and tired of being the only prophet in the land. And we get, so the angel gives him a hearth cake, and tells him to eat and drink, and he goes back to sleep. The angel's like, wake up, you got work to do. You can't just sit there. So, again, it's this being fed. It's this being fed both for body and soul. That seems to be what's prevalent in this week's readings, because Psalm 34 was the proper psalm of the day. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. There have to be at least 2,000 versions of Psalm 34. Which ones? If
not 4,000.
If not 4,000. Which ones did you do this week? Which arrangement?
Cry the Poor. Did the Cry the Poor.
Cry the Poor. Okay, good old chestnut from Father John Foley. How about you, Steve?
Actually, I didn't even think of that one. I've been doing the Respond and Acclaim.
Ah, yes, the good old Respond and We know that you have to do Respond and Acclaim, so why should I even ask?
Well, actually, we don't. It's just I've been just trying not to change anything up.
Too quickly.
Last weekend for Father's installation at the Mass when I had the choir, we actually did, rather than do The Lord Gave Them Bread from Heaven, we did Psalm 34, but I used the Stephen Dean version. Mm-hmm. And the people seem to, pick it up, but I just used the Respond and Acclaim. But I did miss some of the other settings.
Yes, but I think it's good in Stephen's situation right now, because I did notice last week that there was a lot of them that read, and I won't get into really, close your books while there's proclamation going on. I won't do that. Say that right now for your situation, but everybody else should have their books closed. They were reading along, so using what's in the book for them is a reinforcement, at least, of it won't hurt you. That's Nancy, I cut you off. What do you want to say?
No, I was just going to ask something. I was going to ask Stephen. He was talking about the assembly picking up the psalm pretty well. Did you have a worship aid for that specific Mass, Stephen?
No, but what I did do, I just simply, at the time of the responsorial, I just announced that our responsorial is number, whatever the number was.
So they had
it.
They
just
had it
briefly, but it was enough for them to find it, I think.
Yep, good.
Right.
That helps too, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's acceptable in a lot of situations to do that, even just, and if they're used to that, you can just say number 743.
And the choir, they commented to me that, wow, they liked the different style, if you will, because they've been exclusive RNA for probably 30 years.
Wow.
And it's got its place, but to be exclusive is
I
tough.
think it's gotten a bit tired.
If you do anything for 30 years, unless it's exceptional, it gets a little bit tired. Mass of creation. For a lot of you who always complain about that when I say, you really should be using the most recognizable acclamations when you have groups of people that don't know each other.
Right.
And when I say mass creation, all of you roll your eyes. But it's the truth, because they'll all sing it.
And actually, Joanne, in my case, I don't think they've ever done massive creation.
Get out.
No. Wow.
No, I don't think so. I was told that they did Remulsed for years and years.
Whoa. Ooh.
So I could probably do creation to be brandy new.
Hey, there you go. So
you'd be doing them a favor, I think.
You might be.
Yeah.
So I also did the Stephen Dean at Sacred Heart in Middleborough, where I where I played sub on Sunday morning, and did, believe it or not, Father Fran O'Brien's version of Taste and See at St. Thomas on Saturday. We couldn't keep one psalm. Joanne had to do two.
She's up to it.
I know, but that's what you get for playing out. Second, we're still in Ephesians 4. Still in Ephesians 4 for the second reading. Although we've moved now into the be imitators of God and live in love. That whole thing of, don't be this way. You must be kind and gentle, and this is what a Christian is. So be imitators of God. And then, of course, still moving in John 6, moving over to verses 41 through 51. They're a little confused because Jesus is talking about being the living bread from heaven, and they're going, wait a minute, isn't he like the son of Joseph the carpenter? So they're not getting, their disconnect is still there, where they're not seeing that he is, trying to tell them that he is the Messiah, and they're just not picking it up. So that's why the bread from heaven thing doesn't make sense to them at this point. And the homilies seem to have jumped all over the place. Like I said, I heard 3 different homilies that, while similar, jumped into different areas of the spiritual pool. So let's see where yours. Now, are you in the 2 homily business again, Stephen? Where you have?
Yeah, but I can actually combine them into one.
Okay. All right. And I know Nancy's in the 2 homily sometimes.
No, 1 today.
1 today? All right. So I will since Steve's been the one who hasn't been around the most, we'll go to Steve first. Go ahead.
All right. So Father Scott, who's our assistant, he actually honed in on the psalm, taste and see the goodness of the Lord.
Wow.
I know. I said to myself, geez, good thing I didn't change it, huh? Oi.
That would not have been good.
No. He was funny. He's kind of an animated guy, and he said, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. How many people are afraid to try new things?
Oh, there you go.
He said, and how many times do we say, oh, I don't eat such and such? And he'll say, like, his big thing is he hates olives.
Ew.
But one time somebody said to him, well, did you ever try an olive? And he said, no, I know I just know I don't like it. So they said, well, why don't you try it and see if you like it or not. So he said in his case he tried it and he didn't like it.
There you go.
Yeah, and then he said, I guess his sister has an infant. So he said, picture in your mind a baby, trying new food. It can go either way. It can go good or it can go not so good. And he said, and he kind of weaved some funny stories in and out, and he said, now let's talk about the heavenly food, the food for our spiritual journey. He said, it definitely fills us with the grace we need, and this was interesting, it's a living sacrament.
Exactly.
He said, so we must savor this living sacrament. And then Father Forcier said, he honed in on the first reading, and he said, oh, poor Elijah. He said, how do you deal with discouragement?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's loaded.
Yeah, and you know, Joanne, how he comes down and talks in the middle? Did you notice that last
I
week?
like that.
Yeah. So he said, all kinds of job, finance, marriage, illness, down in the dumps. He said, look at the first reading. He said Elijah was. He said, he had it. So he said, God, just take me now. He said,
Doesn't that remind you of Sanford and Son?
Right. He said, how many times do we say that? I've had it. You can just take me now. But he said, God said, no way. And so that he explained to the people, the angel came and sends the angel is supposed to encourage him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and yet, even though he got the physical food that he needed to go on, that's not all we need. We need to taste and see the goodness of the Lord. He mentioned it too. I was like, oh, good thing I didn't change it. So he said, we need the supernatural as well.
Mm-hmm.
So and then he weaved in. He's very good about hopping around. And then he weaved in the second reading, and he said, that goes hand in hand. Tasting and seeing the goodness of the Lord also goes hand in hand with being a good person and letting go of malice and bitterness. Open your hearts. That the tasting and seeing of the goodness of the Lord is supposed to be our fuel for that.
Mm.
So that was the way they spoke about it this weekend.
Yeah, that's the I love everybody harping on Elijah though. This is good.
And Joanne, it was funny. He said, Elijah says, just take me. I've had it.
They're so reminded
Yeah.
of Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
I'm coming, Elizabeth. I'm coming, Elizabeth. For those of you old enough to understand Sanford and Son, if not, please watch TV Land.
Yeah.
Or do they even show that on TV Land?
I think they do. I think
so.
Took off the Dukes of Hazzard, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, this whole thing about spiritual food and natural, regular food for sustenance, people don't understand that they need to have the spiritual. That they just don't go to church and let it wash over them. It has to take hold somehow.
Right.
So I'm glad this was a great Sunday for hitting. I think I used these readings once when I was trying to get volunteers for something. It was a good time to use. I used Elijah under the broom tree, and I said, "Gee, I feel like Elijah under the broom tree every time I come and speak to you about coming to volunteer."
Poke.
Yeah, and I think some people remember that still, but I thought it was interesting. Nancy, what did we hear from your neck of the woods?
Okay, we heard really quite similar to what Stephen just talked about. Really pretty, talking about the lies and depression, and sometimes you just need to come to the table to ease that as well. But he went on, and everything Stephen said was incorporated in my homily.
Oh,
The homily that I heard. But he took it a step further for us. As some of you may know from the way Joanne introduces me, I work at St. Teresa and St. Christopher's in Tiverton. And we're not two merged parishes, but we're two parishes under the same administration, the same pastor, as you will. And we have pains right now, a little bit of growing pains in coming together. And so he was great. I loved it. He said, let us use the Eucharist as a binding to bring us together in everything that we do and all that we worship together and all the things that we come together, like the feast. I mean, right now there's a lot of stuff going on, so we just gave the litany of everything that was going on. The feast last week, the picnic next week, and the Vacation Bible Camp, and all of this stuff. And he says, let us come to the Eucharist as a center to bind us together as a community of faith.
Oh, good for him.
And I thought, good, absolutely, that's exactly what I said to myself. But he set the foundation up almost pretty close to using the same verbiage that Steve just shared with Father Scott and Father Forcier. But he took it that one step deliberately, and just trying to get folks to understand that we are two, but we are one, if that makes any sense. Yes, there's a St. Christopher, there's a St. Teresa, but we are a Catholic faith community of St. Teresa, St. Christopher. And so I thought he did a fine job bringing that together and using the Eucharist as, we can't fight, folks. We're here with the same Eucharist. Every week in, week out, event, they differ, they change, but we're still the same community, and we're still here for the same reason. And so, yeah, we'll see. See what happens.
That's so hard to be twin.
Yeah.
You know, to be a twin parish is not. You're not you've got one pastor. Sometimes you're sharing a deacon. Sometimes you're sharing other administrative people. But it's not like, it's even not like a collaborative.
No.
Even though the collaborative
That would be the closest I would say, though.
Yeah, but our collaborative have taken a step more forward, where
right,
where they don't have their own parish councils, they don't have their own, they have together group.
And that's why I say we are not merged. We are not.
No.
But nonetheless, because we have one pastor,
right,
and still are separate. However, there are things that have to be common, and the coming together in the Catholic faith community is. Because we did some a taking away of a mass from each church and making one new mass for both parishes, a combined St. Teresa, St. Christopher mass, and that's gone pretty well. In front of the scenes, behind the scenes, I'm not so sure. And
I was going to say, except when it doesn't, but that's
well, if anybody disturbs the celebration of a mass, they'll have me to deal with, because and I'd be the least of your worries.
No, nobody will, but it's just
nobody will,
the grind will continue to complain. That's all.
And so we just need to come together. We need to realize that our commonality is in the Eucharist.
Right.
It's one of the strongest commonalities that we're going to have, and we have to start there.
Exactly.
And that's where he took it for us, because that's what our need was.
Good.
So, yeah.
Good. And again, people can't be discouraged, because this is happening all over the place today.
Oh, absolutely.
My collaborative is still we do not have our associate yet. Because remember, when they built this collaborative, there were 2 priests in residence. Now there's only 1. And we do have what I call the rent-a-priest brigade, where they come in and fill in everything else. But my boss has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 masses on a weekend in 3 separate churches. And one church is 25 minutes away from the nearest next church. Okay, so we had to rearrange our mass schedules. So this week was the first week that the 7:30 mass in Lakeville was moved to 7 o'clock.
A.M.
Yes, A.M. folks. That's That's.
Is that the mass you played?
No.
I often say Jesus is sleeping that early in the morning.
But and there is no music at that mass now.
Okay.
There was music. Now there is no music. But he had to take the 5 o'clock mass at St. Rose in Rochester and move it to 5:30 on Saturday night, because in case he had no one and he had to go from a 4 o'clock mass, he has to have enough time to get there.
Yeah.
And then in September in Middleborough, they're going to take the 8:30 mass and move it back to 8 o'clock. So he will have a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10, and 11 on Sunday morning, and then he has 2 4s and a 5:30 on Saturday. All right? This way he can do a set, like today he did 7, 9, and 11. Got to each church. It's that type of thing, and he has to be able to do that, and at a moment's notice.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is the same thing at St. Augustine's. They went from, let's say, a year ago now, 4 priests, 7 weekend masses.
Wow.
Down to today, 2 priests,
4 masses,
and 5 weekend masses.
5 weekend masses. Okay.
And I didn't begin until the new schedule was already in place. But I do hear people, like Nancy said, I do hear people in passing
Yep.
bemoaning the fact that their mass is gone.
Mhm.
But
You didn't ask me. I
right.
didn't think I had to.
But you know, it's. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
Right.
So.
Right. There is not. This is what we have. We have these wonderful Eucharistic banquets that we want everybody to come to every week, but we don't have enough men, celebrants, priests, sometimes to handle it. So if you try to take one away, instead of everybody saying, "Okay, we'll try to get it together," it's like no, because you know. Right. You've got that faction. And then you've got the other faction.
For special feature, me.
You know, it's all about them. So either everybody wants it all because that's the way it's always used to be, or it only matters that you're taking away my mass.
Yeah.
Or adjusting my schedule. So,
Yep.
And how did you get on this?
Nancy started it.
Let's blame
Okay, I'll go.
Nancy. All right. And I haven't
that-
even gotten to my homilies yet, you know.
And it was just a matter of understanding where his homily was based,
Right.
is all.
Right. So I haven't even gotten to my homilies
Sorry,
yet.
folks.
Nothing to do with any of that. But no, I think that time and time again, this is still going to be an issue. This is going to be an
Absolutely.
issue in church for a very long time.
It's going to be more and more an issue for
Well,
everybody.
I think it's a new reality. Like for instance, with me,
Absolutely.
I wonder as my ministry career progresses if at one point I'll be in 2 and 3 churches.
That is
Possible.
not surprising.
You
That
know what
would
I mean?
not be surprising at all. I can see that. As a director of religious education too, same thing. When I was at St. Teresa St. Christopher's, I was director for both places.
Right.
So there's not right now in the collaborative, I'm director only in one place. But quite frankly, the collaborative could probably use, there's 3 of us, it could probably only use really 2 of us. Just because of the proximities of Middleborough and Lakeville. I think you could not merge it, but you could do it with a different configuration and staff.
Right.
So these are things that are going to get ironed out and worked on in years to come. What we knew growing up is starting to no longer exist. And yes, we want to give it the due that it's due. You know, I mean, and I don't mean to make fun of it.
No.
But we need to be more realistic here. We don't want to burn people out. We don't want to burn our pastors out. We want to accommodate everybody.
And
We can't do everything that we used to do.
and when the bishop spoke last weekend at the installation mass, he was very frank. And I actually spoke to him after mass.
Mhm.
And as I was, leaving, and he thanked me for the music and everything, and I said, your comments were what needed to be said.
Yeah.
That he knows that the parish has gone through a lot of change. He said, I'm very aware of that, and he knows it's not easy, and he said, at the same time, we're not the only ones who are going through some adjustments. And exactly what Nancy said. The bottom line is we're the church.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly. Boy, if I come up with a title for this show. Anyway, let me go on to my homilies, and I may only choose one at this point, which means I will go with Father John Soares over at St. Thomas because Linda's not here, so I get to read his homilies. So Father John, and this was echoed in the second homily I heard in Middleborough today. You are what you eat. Haven't we heard that expression from time to time, especially if we are sneaking a bag of chips or a pint of peanut butter chocolate ice cream? So now we know what the pastor likes to eat. For most of us, food is indeed central to our days. What to have for breakfast, mothers making lunches for the kids for school. And he used to say, because he's one of 5 boys in his family, that his mother would lay out, you know, the 5 pieces of bread, and then you get the and then, you know, put all the tops on. And he said we'd put it in a brown paper bag and put it in our locker until lunch. None of this refrigeration stuff. He said, so if you had 5th lunch and you took that bag out of your locker, he said, and if it was tuna fish, he said, but I won't go there now. I'll spoil your supper, because this was a 4 o'clock mass. And then, of course, how do I get my kids and husband to eat vegetables at dinner time? He also shared a story about one of the TV cooks that we have in our area, talking about making a mac and cheese and making the sauce out of cauliflower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently it worked, because he said he fed it to his kids for years and they never really realized it wasn't cheese. That it was cauliflower with milk and a whole bunch of other things. For us Catholics, food is central to our faith lives as well. We are indeed what we eat. We eat the body and blood of Christ so that we can be his presence in the world. Now, many of us from time to time feel like Elijah in our first reading, the whiner, where everything has gone wrong and all we want to do is curl up under a broom tree and let the world go by. No, I think he wanted to die, actually. Yet God doesn't allow that to happen to Elijah. He feeds him with a hearth cake and a jug of water, food for his difficult journey. For us, we have a different kind of food. The bread come down from heaven as food for our faith journey. That is why we have spent this past few weeks on what is called in John's Gospel the Bread of Life discourse, because it emphasizes what is most important for us as believers, our need to celebrate the Eucharist and then go out and be that presence of Christ to others. This means listening to St. Paul's words of wisdom. We need to get rid of ourselves, both personally and as a community, of all bitterness, fury, anger, shouting, and reviling. Yeah, right. And instead be kind to one another, compassionate and forgiving, just as God has forgiven us in Christ. To be a true Eucharistic people means not only we gather and celebrate in an active way with singing and praying and responses, but we also put that celebration into action by the way we choose to live our lives. Are we perfect? Of course not. But we never should stop trying to be imitators of God. Like Elijah, we will have our good and bad days, but we always have food for the journey we call life. Make it, whoa, I love it when he types these things, to give us strength we need to indeed be imitators of God by what we say and do. That was his homily, and it was. I mean, he's again another very lively presenter. So he gets people. He puts lots more antidotes in there that sometimes I can remember and what I can't. But the other 2 homilies that I heard on Sunday basically did the same thing. The second homily dwelt more on the second reading in the Gospel. Another, you are what you eat. And this time he told the story of when this priest was an associate, the pastor was giving the homily on this topic, and he said, now, if you look very carefully into Father Bill's eyes, you'll find out that he likes chocolate chip cookies. So don't tell him I said that. So he said he's seeing all, he's at the back of the church and all the kids are coming out, and they're all staring into his eyes intently, and he has no idea why they're all staring into his eyes intently. But it's because the pastor said he likes chocolate chip cookies, and you can see it in his eyes. Don't you love it when guys do that? And then he was the one who broached the topic of, do Catholics really believe that what they are consuming is the body and blood of Christ? And he talked about the percentage of Catholics who don't believe this. Everybody has a different percentage. I've read 35%. Some have gone higher, some have gone lower. And then my pastor, who did the third homily, Father John Sheridan, my boss, he talks about 2 nieces who are marathon runners. And you got to know my Father John is like, he reminds me of Santa Claus without the beard. And he's like, I go to watch them. He said, I could never do it. He said it would be just a total mess on the floor. He said, but I go to watch and give encouragement. And he said in a marathon, you got to kind of get into a rhythm. And this is what we're trying to get across to poor Elijah the whiner, who wants to just die. He needs that food, but he also needs something more than food. And Jesus gives us more than food. He gives us life. He gives sustenance to us so that we can get through the marathon of life. Life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, and then he talked about our pastoral plan, because there was something that he needed to talk about also to us this week, because we have a new pastoral plan in place. So they were, the food of life, sustenance, running a marathon. Everybody hit the broom tree, and so I have a feeling that in the next 2 weeks we're going to take that, because we're coming up to the one, and I think I don't know if we're still going to be here or not, or probably that's the week we're not going to be here when we talk about, and many people walked away because this was too hard for them to hear. I'm not sure if it's next week or the week after. If it isn't next week and we're away the following week, we do have to touch that, because that is so central to who we are as Catholics. So we'd like to know really what you folks are hearing. I know it's the summer. I know you're going hither and yon. I know some of you are going to have a binge listening or binge watching in the next couple of weeks in September. Don't. Get over here. We want to know what's going on in your world. So please send us some feedback so we can add you to the mix at mondaymorningcatholic@gmail.com. Put it up on our webpage, mondaymorningcatholic.net. There's always a little comment box there. You can go to facebook.com/mondaymorningcatholic, especially to vote for your Voice of the People, which is our next segment. Or you can call us at the Voice Feedback line, 774-955-0659. We'd love to hear your voice, because we get tired of hearing of our own sometimes. Okay, our Voice of the People this week is not, now the last couple of weeks, these two weren't here. And it always seemed to be about liturgy, so I was getting into another old song of mine. Liturgy is a battlefield. But we didn't have that this week. Thank God we didn't have that this week. It wasn't. It's a miracle. But this week, the Voice of the People want to know more about. God knows that I love my music. It's to do with music. It figures after all of this. We in the music world have a wonderful group of composers for the last, how many years, 30, that have been really sharing their gifts with us. And one of them has received a huge honor of having his composition be chosen for the official hymn for the Year of Mercy that's coming up, that begins on December 8th, I believe. It begins on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, as called by our Pope Francis. His name is Paul Inwood, and if you know anything about Paul Inwood, he is an English composer. He worked 14 years out of the St. Thomas More Center for Pastoral Liturgy. For those of you who've been around long enough, you know some of his music, trust me. Such as, and of course, quick, everybody yell out his music.
Center of my life.
Center of my life, first one. I was kind of hoping you'd say that first, so I wouldn't have to say, okay, what else? Blessed Are Those, his Psalm 128 is a beautiful rendition. I used it for weddings lots of times. We Shall Draw Water Joyfully. It's another one of those, what I call the German.
We shall draw water joyfully, singing joyfully.
Songs. That piece for the vigil, everyone that I've seen is almost like a German drinking song, and such. So, it is wonderful that he has been recognized with this honor. Yes, he had to use a specific text that they were all given to be used, but apparently this is a great honor for him and a great honor for those of us who know him. Linda knows him, I think, the best of the four of us. But Steve and Nancy had a chance to listen to the piece. So what do you think of it? Don't all run to that. You don't wait for me to say it, but don't all run to that.
I feel it's a simple enough piece that my 2-part, sometimes 3-part choir will be able to learn, but because we have some Latin present, it will take a little longer to learn.
Right.
That's my initial, I listened to part of it. I didn't get a chance to do the whole. I love a lot of the chord structure. It's very lovely. It really is lovely.
Well, it is a text by Eugenio Costa, S.J., so a Jesuit, and Portuguese, which already is two stars in my book. And it says that his submission, a unique combination of various elements, including a tese response and a gelano tone with verses that work in any language. So
I was just going to say that I was going to describe it, those that are familiar with the tese and then the gelano tones.
Oh, darn, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
You did. You stole my thunder.
You stole the thunder.
But Nancy, I do think I did see the PDF, and I think you can do the verses in English.
The verses can be done in English, but there is the piece that is more the mantra is Latin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is strictly Latin. Yeah.
And that's the piece that I'm not saying we can't do it. It's just that's not our norm, so it'll take us a little while. That's
right.
all.
Right. Well, I think it's in Latin because folks, whether you like it or not, Latin is still the official language of the church.
And I have no problem with that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. Believe me, don't misunderstand me.
No,
it's just it will take my choir a little longer. That's all.
We've gotten out of the Latin field because a lot of people are afraid that if they use Latin, it's called revert, and they're going to go backwards in time. I don't believe that per se. I think a little Latin is good because it is our heritage. So anything that's our heritage,
it's kind of a shame that we don't have more music that intertwines both.
I agree. I think one piece off the top of my head that does both Latin and English is Dan Schuette's "Holy Is God."
And
I love using that piece.
And then the other one that was a favorite in Bristol we would do is the Ubi Caritas.
Yep.
I think the Bob Hurd.
Mm-hmm.
That one went off well.
Yeah.
Because it was the Latin refrain, but the verses were in English.
Yep.
Exactly. The more Daniel Cantor, it was known for his Night of Silence, also did an Ave Maria the same way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We used that for Winter Sing last year, the year before.
Right. So when you do pieces like that, you're marrying, the church through the ages, and I think that's a big benefit for us. To do more stuff like that. It also keeps the language of Latin alive, because other than the ATM at the Vatican and documents that come through, we don't see Latin very much in our liturgies at all. We see more Greek because we say Kyrie eleison, or sing Kyrie eleison, which is Greek. So but this is a great honor for Paul, and that kind of got everybody's attention on Facebook. So we're going to talk about these things as long as you tell us. The Great Experiment continues until episode 90, and then we'll decide whether or not this is still going to be a part of because it keeps us from talking about other things, which sometimes is good and sometimes is not. As you saw in today's episode, we got all that stuff out in the beginning.
We found the rails quick.
Yeah, we fell off the rails really quickly, and we didn't even think we would do that. So it's, you never know with us. Anyway, but I think that brings us to the end of our show for today, because we have nothing else to talk about.
Well done.
And everybody's looking, going, okay, fine, get off. Anyway, so again, we want you to be part of this. If you're new to this show, we do talk about, our main focus is to talk about what went on in last week's liturgy. In the summer, it's basically the readings. During the rest of the year, we talk about other things, other rituals that go on. So that is our main focus, but we also talk about a myriad of other things, and we are musicians. All of us. So you're going to hear the music part. It's just who we are, and we're not going to apologize for that now, are we? Yes, no, people?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Never. So, Again, please send us your feedback. We love to hear from you. MondayMorningCatholic@gmail.com is our best place for email. In the comment box at MondayMorningCatholic.net, Facebook.com/MondayMorningCatholic. Especially all week, I'm putting up stuff. So, as the voice of the people, you're directing that. If you like something, share it, like it, comment on it, so we know. And then, of course, you can call our voice feedback line, 774-955-0659. Guys, it was so glad to have you guys back.
Good to be back.
Gang's almost back, but now, Nancy, you may not be here next week, right?
I've got the picnic, and he's really I'm not. I won't be here next week.
Boo! Woo! Woo!
Or the week after, because it's my grandson's birthday party.
Well, and see, the week after is...
That's the one that we may,
We may not be here for that, and we'll explain why next week. So you got to show up next week so you know why we're not going to do that. So, but Steve, you're going to be fine. Just remember, take it slow. You can't go wrong if you take it slow over there, and it's going to be cool. But this was cool, guys. Thank you so much. As the Bish says, pray for those persecuted Christians. And this week's prayer, pray for your own communities. That may be hard in some places, but your own Eucharistic communities also need your prayer so that they can survive and thrive. So send up a prayer for them this week. For Steve Romano, for Nancy Smith, for myself, Joanne Mercier, and for Linda, who will be back with us next week. Thank you all for being a part of our little gathering here. God bless, and ciao for now. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.